Songs of Tokyo, the final episode, and they decided to put Band-Maid on. Well, I think we can all agree that was the right choice. So let's get into breaking down both the performance and the interview. Hi there and welcome back to Japan, where Band-Maid both performed and did an interview on the final ever episode of NHK's Songs of Tokyo, and we're going to be looking at that today, kind of doing a reaction video to it. Obviously I can't play you the episode on here, I'll get copyright blocked, but what I am going to do is I'm going to skip through and we're going to talk about various points from the interview and from the performance. But first of all, let me just quickly talk about the whole thing that we're looking at here, because I think this is quite important. See, if you're watching this video, it's quite likely that you're already a Band-Maid fan, you're quite likely already on board, and you're quite likely very happy to see them as one of the main acts. In fact, the act that took up most of the time on this final episode. However, there's a few other things that I wanted to really note about it, which might seem obvious, but are certainly worth stating. Now, the first one is the fact that when we're looking at Band-Maid being on a show like this, it does for them what I think I also pointed out was very important about performing with the Last Rock Stars, and then it opens them up to an audience of people who are probably interested in Japan already but may not know Band-Maid. I mean, it's so hard for us to think of this as people who are Band-Maid fans, but it's important to remember that they're still not really a household name. I mean, even look at Baby Metal. Baby Metal, I know, dare I say, BTS. It's not like you could just mention to a random person on the street and they'll know. They have to already be someone who's into music and probably into, you know, kind of niche music. Then you look at a band like Band-Maid, and of course if you're already into hard rock you might know them, but there's still plenty of people who are into Japanese rock who've not heard of them. So it is really important to have them on a platform like this where they can get through to people who will be interested, because I think the quality can take them the rest of the way, but you need to have that exposure. Such a cliche word, but it's so true. And I think the other thing as well to point out is that this in a way is a kind of ringing endorsement. Now, we know Band-Maid have done so many things, including this Last Rock Stars opening performance that was such a grand thing and such a good endorsement of how far they've come. But performing on this last performance of Songs of Tokyo, well, Songs of Tokyo, what was it set up to do? It was set up originally, I think this was prior to the 2020 Olympics and prior to COVID as well. It was set up to really attract an interest to this side of Japanese culture that occasionally gets noticed but is not taken, or at least wasn't a few years ago, taken quite as seriously as we are looking at now, as the world is getting smaller and people are being more and more open to foreign language music and various things. It was really there to make sure that Japanese music was on board as Japanese culture got exposed during the whole Olympics thing, which turned out to be a bit of a debacle, but that's a different subject. However, that's really what Songs of Tokyo was there to do. And to have Band-Maid on the final episode, to me, really highlights one of the important things. Now, in our end of year awards thing we always do on this show, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already if you want to see content like that, but we do a award which we give to the artist who we think has done the most in that year, or as a general, to really expose Japanese culture to the outside world. And Band-Maid have won that before, but are always in consideration for that award because of the fact that they are doing so much to really make a palatable form of Japanese music, you know, really approach this hard rock sound but do it in a way that is listenable and palatable to people from other cultures. They are really good at bridging the gap with both an open sound that takes in so many things, but also a writing and performance quality that anyone can appreciate. And having them on this last episode, and I should point out taking most of the time in this last episode, to me just highlights the fact that even the people from, you know, middle of the road NHK know that Band-Maid are such an important thing. They are a final hurrah, and I really think that to me is such a ringing endorsement that we shouldn't overlook when seeing this. We should look at that and say, yeah, NHK looked at it and went, if we're going to do a final episode, we need Band-Maid. And that, I think that's great. So anyway, let's get on to breaking this down. Okay, so picking up on the recording, which I'll link below and you can check out, NHK do actually have the full TV show. They keep it on like a view again player on their website. But yes, obviously we're looking at NHK World, and I love the fact that immediately they come in by mentioning, the first thing they say is, hey, this group opened for Last Rock Stars, and, you know, mentioning Yoshiki even to introduce Last Rock Stars. So you can really see they're kind of honing in from the most famous household names to point out, you know, these girls are connected, you know, they're doing big things. And then they talk a lot about the international tour dates, which I think was a really nice choice as well. Obviously Band-Maid, they're performing internationally. That is something that's really connecting with fans. But I do really like that that's pretty much the entire intro is about Band-Maid are performing internationally. They're taking the music to the rest of the world. So I really like the fact they highlighted that. By the way, this was this recording, Band-Maid appeared from about 9 minutes in. Yeah, Buy T-Shirts You Sound were right before them. Really good as well. If you want me to, I'll do a video about that as well. But yeah, Buy T-Shirts You Sound. Do check out the whole thing if you watch this back. But anyway, let's jump in, because the first song they played was Choose Me. Now, Choose Me, I think this is a good choice. See, when we look at the songs that they played, they had a choice of 2 songs. They picked Choose Me and Memorable, and I thought this was actually a perfect choice. Now, I know that a lot of hardcore Band-Maid fans might not think this is the best ones to put forward, but again, remember the setting. This is NHK. This is something that's going to be viewed not only by people who are looking for rock bands, but people who just like music as a general. I mean, on Songs of Tokyo, we have everything from the lightest singer-songwriters all the way up, and so you want to really show your musicality. You want to show the songs that, if you like, are the most radio-friendly. Choose Me is a great example, I think, of the most radio friendly of Band-Maid's core sound songs. It rocks like a Band-Maid song. It's one of their self-written songs, but it also is furiously catchy. I thought that was a great choice. And Memorable, nice one. It's up to date, it's modern, it's relevant, it's one of their current songs. Well, it is the most current song at time of recording, and yet it manages to also convey a softer side that can bring in fans from a different perspective, but also at the same time manages to have a seriously catchy chorus. I know we've been back and forwards on this. It's not their catchiest song. I still think, you look at songs like Choose Me and Page, they are catchier. But this is really catchy, and I think it's got very strong single potential, not only in Japan but overseas. So yeah, I think they chose the songs very well. Also, considering that NHK were putting in lots of clips in between of them, like I say, doing live shows, they were showing like really heavy rocking out stuff. So I don't think it's like anyone's going to walk into this band like unaware of what it's going to be. It's not going to be like when Song 2 by Blur came out in America and everyone was like, oh, this is a heavy metal band. They listened to the album and it's like, oh no, this is not a heavy metal. So I think everyone's going to know that, but I think these are really good palatable choices that both show what the band is musically, show their musicianship, also show a catchiness, show an ability to be accessible to overseas fans and to light music fans as a general. Some people are just into general any type of music. Yeah, I really like the choices of songs. I thought they were great. Now, before we jump into talking about the interview, I also wanted to talk about the actual performance that they gave as well of these 2 songs. Now, when we're looking at Memorable, it's much easier because you can just sort of vibe and play it chilled out. But Choose Me was an interesting one because they got this stage where obviously, you're not playing to a big audience, you're playing on a soundstage. I love the fact that, again, it had what you want from this kind of soundstage. It had a beautiful recording. The recording was well recorded so that we could hear it sounding great. It had that studio live quality that we often think of the things like the first take. It had that kind of quality of being something that you could listen to without having to have any of the detriments that obviously usually come with hearing a live performance, but on stage they gave it a good performance as well. It is hard in that kind of environment where you're just standing in front of a bunch of characters, but I kind of like the fact that during the solos you really get to see Kanami's kind of losing herself in the solos. She's got a big smile on her face. Saiki's still moving around and giving it a lot of body language. Miku was quite chilled for the best part, I must admit, but she's kind of up front of the stage, and again, she's got a smile on her face. I just like the fact that the band, they can't exactly go around start wrecking stuff. It's not going to be that kind of performance. Not that they usually do that, I'm glad to say. However, it's not going to be that kind of like OTT performance. However, the body language was there. There was a sense of fun. There was a sense of they were moving with the music. I guess that's the thing. You kind of felt and saw their whole bodies moving. They're not one of those bands who just stands rigid and just kind of like math rocks their way through it. No disrespect to math rock, but I think the body language which comes along with it is often a bit like, are you having fun? And these guys, they looked like they're having fun. And that, again, is important. This is all about getting them across to an audience who can enjoy them. And I really thought they looked like they were just the part. They were both able to, in such a Japanese way, appear at something as important as being at NHK, this big national institution, and perform with respect for the location. And yet at the same time, they were performing in a way that showed they were musicians who loved doing music, and they were lost in their music at the same time as just being a rock band. I thought the performance was particularly apt for the location, and again, perfect to get them across to people who want to sort of see a band who are accessible but are enjoying what they do. So yeah, big shout out for the performance. Let's get in though to talking about the interview that appeared between the 2 songs. Okay, so this is the bit I'm going to react a bit more blow for blow to, and I love this fact. This is such a Japanese TV thing, but the clapping and the kakoi, they're so cool. The minute they come in, we know they're cool. No. I love that. It's like when you go into the convenience stores and everyone's always like so happy to see you. The staff are always smiling, and it's like we know how to do the instructions. I love that. So cool. So the body language is immediately on point. Again, this is a nice thing about them conveying their characters well. I've often said that one of the things I really like about Band-Maid is that their characters are kind of like a hyperbolic version of their true selves. They take their true behind the scenes personalities and they don't fake anything. They're just themselves a little bit more, and with the occasional add of po for our particular resident Hato. But from the get-go, you can see Konami's looking very sweet and happy. You can see Miku's looking very much herself, you know, the head of the band. We've obviously got Saiki and Misa very chill, but the one that I like is Akane at the back, who I often said one of the reasons why #NoBias, one of the reasons why I'm such an Akane fan is I get the feeling that she is just 100% real. Like everything about her is just there is no character or nothing. It's just like she is her own personality, and she's got that look of someone who watched NHK as a kid, as I'm sure they probably all did, and is just like thinking, oh, I'm on NHK. Probably not the first time, but you know, I'm on NHK. I'm doing an interview, and she just looks so happy to be there. And maybe #NoBias, but hey, I really love Akane's response when they sort of like introduce them here. Now, credit to the interviewer. I think this first question is absolutely fantastic because he's kind of politely looking behind the veil a little bit here and asking her, it's like, well, sort of acknowledging the po that she does. Just in case you don't know, by the way, because we always try and make this accessible for everyone. Po is kind of like a noise that is attached to pigeons in the Japanese kind of lexicon, I guess, in the same way you'd have like woof for a dog is wan in Japanese, and meow for a cat is nyan. I don't know what noise we give for a pigeon in English, but it's like the po sound is kind of attached to them, and so that's why Miku always does that at the end of everything, because she takes on this pigeon persona. But the fact that the interviewer asked her, do you ever forget to say it, and she just immediately, oh no, I like that because he's acknowledging it's a thing that you're doing, right? You're doing this. I know some people thought that was kind of a disrespectful question, but I think he asked that in a nice way, and I loved her response, which is very matter of fact. I was kind of almost in that moment expecting her to say, I don't have to think, but no, she oh no, I don't forget. I love that. I thought that was great. Again, he follows this up really well though, because I love the fact that he immediately acknowledged the rhythm section, and just coming across like a true music lover here, because so many people often focus on the lead guitar and the vocals, which is obviously great in Band-Maid. It's just the fact that they have that really solid rhythm section and the bass and the drums that so many Japanese artists focus on more than perhaps a lot of their Western counterparts. But Band-Maid really very strong bass and drum work. It's nice to see that focused on here. However, I like the fact that, and then Miku and Saiki then sort of point out as part of the overall effect of the band, the fact that the band are so impactful on every level that when fans, or I should say non-fans, people at festivals hear them for the first time, it's that look of being startled and amazed, and the fact that Miku and Saiki pick up and say, yeah, that's kind of what we're going for. We want to blow them away. And I think, again, that's nice because even at this point in their career, after they've been around for so long, over a decade now, they can still look back and they can still reference the juxtaposition that their image provides, the fact that it allows them to obviously have this nice kind of running dialogue and image with their existing fans, but also still have that impact, still have that surprise effect on new fans this far into their career. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fantastic thing. And again, it's not just having the images backing it up, it's being able to present this image of, look, we're going to surprise you with our image, but then when you hear it, it's not just, oh, well, look, okay, they were cool, but look, they got really great guitar solos. It's like, no, they're a complete band with a complete makeup, all of this, the whole rhythm section, everything's there. So yeah, again, fantastic points, well made. And can we quickly talk about this slow panning shot of the band whilst Miku's talking about their live shows, and just the look is like Misa's looking down like, I'm here. Saiki looks completely disconnected. Konami's like, she's talking, and even Akane, who was like smiling so much, is like, she's off on the talking again. She's rambling again. It is true though that even though obviously they've put Saiki front and center as she kind of is in the band makeup, if you actually look at the way the whole stage is set up, they've put Miku on the corner closest to the interviewer because she's the one that actually did the interview, and that kind of makes sense. That's kind of her role. I've pointed this out before. I like that fact that even though the band has a traditional band layup where Psyche is at the front, we kind of know that Miku is the band founder and she is the face of the band in so many ways. And it's nice that they have those multiple angles of approach. They have the lead singer who you focus on during a live performance, usually as most people would, but then they have Miku, who is, if you like, the publicity front of the band and the core to what the band's drive is. So I like the way they presented that. I know they've done things like that before, but I just thought it was really nice and prominent in this particular interview. So then we get kind of a shorthand version of how the band became famous, and obviously how an online video for Thrill really launched them up into that international success and got them noticed and doing overseas festivals. The interesting thing is here, obviously, they reduce it to take out all of the stresses and things that you're not going to mention in an interview like this about how difficult it was, about how they had their own concerns about how likely it was that the band was going to succeed early on, and I do think that that's kind of interesting how they focus very much on the success and it's all very hyped up. But then when they talk about that first festival that they did in the US, it's the fact that Miku is responding by saying, sort of we were dubious about whether it was real. We were looking at the video views going up and thinking, is this a bug? Is something wrong? And so in a way, I like the fact that they come back and they kind of reference the fact that they always wanted to be huge. She says we always wanted world domination, but at the same time they were kind of taken by surprise by their own success as well. So I think that sort of humility runs through there, which is again nice to see. It's nice to see that they're still aware of how lucky they are to have achieved this much. Hard work said, but luck is always a factor as well, and right place, right time. They've capitalized on that success. Again, another fantastic question from the lady here who mentions about the mixture of different language, using English and Japanese. I've always said that I kind of understand the use of English is an interesting one because it's a very different musical tool. I mean, the whole sound, the whole structure is very different from Japanese. So I think Japanese is very underrated as an incredibly musical language in its whole rhythm and its whole natural rhyming structure. It is interesting that they point out, we use a little bit of English, but then Miku more talks about, because it is mostly Miku talking, of course, and she's a lyric writer. She then talks about how in Japanese as well, they want to be interesting, not just to connect to their English fans in English, but also to talk to the English people who are learning, or the English-speaking fans who are learning Japanese, which is interesting. I never really thought about that aspect. They go into talking a lot about the use of idioms, Japanese idioms, which is a very interesting factor. Again, this is something I've heard talked about with Band-Maid, but not one that I'd ever really sort of gone into in much detail. But this is something that is a big part of their lyrics, and it's interesting to hear her referring to that knowingly as something that is almost offered up as an interesting Japanese lyrical technique that they knowingly are giving to their Western fans to take in and get some interesting Japanese learning from as well. So I like the fact that as well as just trying to appeal to their English-speaking fans, they're also trying to advertise the Japanese language, which I just think that's brilliant. I'm all for Japanese artists using English as a musical tool and various things. And I'm not being weeby here or anything, but I would prefer they use the language that they're most comfortable with. So when I hear something like this, I really appreciate that it's not just using the language that they're most artistically and communicatively comfortable with, but also using it knowing of Western fans who will want to learn Japanese from their lyrics. And that pretty much sums up the interview. I mean, that's where they concluded. They went into memorable then. I have to say, I thought this was really nicely done. It was very condensed. I know a bit about Songs of Tokyo from past experience. However, I must admit, I thought they did a nice job. They had the perfect songs. The interview was great, really touched on subjects that overseas fans could enjoy as well. They got to the heart of the band. It was fun. The band were presented well. It was interesting. Obviously, Miku did all the talking. However, I must admit, again, she's a fantastic face for the band. I think this was just right. It filled in the right amount of time. It was a really good way of presenting the band. And I felt that they did a really good job of putting Band-Maid across in a way that is both interesting, it was nice and engaging for long-term fans. Most importantly though, dare I say it, I think it's true, it was a really good advert for the band to new fans, and I also think a very nice ringing endorsement putting them in this final episode of the show. So anyway, those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments, tell me what you think. I hope you enjoyed this as well. As I mentioned, hopefully if you guys are interested, I'll do a little bit of a talk about the Yabai T-shirts performance as well, because that is an awesome band you should also check out if you are going to watch this entire performance on the NHK site. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, for now, ciao ciao.